Welcome to the Zen Run podcast. I am so glad you're here. Each week we dive into the real, raw and often unexpected journeys of everyday runners. Because every runner has a story and every story has the power to inspire. If you've got a running story of your own, whether you're just lacing up for the first time or you're deep into your ultra journey, I'd love to hear it. Sharing your experience might be just the thing that someone else needs to get out the door. And hey, if you're looking for a bit of motivation or just want to keep your running fun and stress-free, check out Zen Run. It's a relaxed space with guided runs, simple training plans, and monthly challenges to help you stay consistent without the pressure. All right, let's jump into this week's story. It's a good one. Today on the podcast, I'm chatting with Rick Prince. He's the founder of UESCA, which stands for United Endurance Sports Coaching Academy. It's also where I did my ultra running coach certification last year. So yes, I was a little bit excited for this one. Rick has such an interesting background. We talk about how he got started in endurance sport, why he created UESCA, what he sees in the world of ultra and endurance right now, and he also shares some really good thoughts on motivation, training, and why sometimes we all need to stop obsessing over data and just enjoy the run. Okay, let's jump in. Today on the Zen Run podcast, I am really excited and a little bit awestruck to introduce you to Rick Prince. Now, Rick is the founder of UESCA, and I'll get him to explain UESCA a little bit later. But it is the place where most of you have heard that I went and got some coach training, so I became an ultra running coach. He's the founder of that particular business that allows people to become certified in ultra running, which, as we will talk about later, there's not a lot of places out there in the world where you can specialize in ultra running coaching. So anyway, after all that, Rick Prince, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Michelle. Appreciate it.
As I keep saying, I'm very excited to talk to you because UESCA itself has been, in my sphere. I've been and looking at it for quite a few years now, and now have also been certified in it. It's quite a pleasure to be able to talk to you, I feel. So thank you for jumping on and sharing some of your story.
Of course.
Let's start with Rick Prince and where he grew up. Give us a little bit about your background.
Yeah, sure. I grew up in Pennsylvania, in the United States, in Pennsylvania. I'm not sure if any of the listeners are familiar with the area called the Pocono Mountains, but it's an area right near New Jersey, kind of on the border with New Jersey. It's in the Appalachian Mountains. It's definitely not the Rockies or anything like that. But I grew up doing a lot of outdoor things, like skiing on, they're hills compared to the mountains out here in Colorado. But, I got into bike racing, just a lot of outdoor stuff. And then from there, I went to school in Massachusetts, in Springfield, Massachusetts, got a degree in kinesiology. And shortly thereafter, I moved back to the Poconos for about 6 months until I learned that I couldn't really make a living there doing kinesiology type things. So I moved to New York City, to Manhattan, and I worked there and lived there for about 20 years. Until 2018, when I started UESCA full-time, and I had a newborn at that point, and then we moved to Colorado. So that's sort of
that's like the potted version, straight from birth to now.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, as far as my youth, I grew up in Pennsylvania. Again, sort of a rural area. I was one of the few, football, hunting, NASCAR, which is, auto racing. Those are like the big things. Definitely not running and cycling. Even though there's a lot of outdoor activity, no one really did that stuff. So I was like the weird kid, that did all these weird endurance things when no one else didn't.
Do you have siblings? Like, are you?
I have a sister. She was never really athletic. My parents were both professors at the local university. My
Yeah.
mom taught math, my dad taught computer science. They were not athletic at all. So I was sort of this, yeah, just rando, weird person that, I shouldn't say I didn't like school. I tolerated school. I
Yeah.
was a decent student, but I wasn't. I always wanted to be outside doing stuff, or I wanted, so yeah, it was just sort of one of those things where my outlet was definitely endurance sports for sure, but it definitely was not what my sister did or my parents did. I didn't. It wasn't like they did that, so that's why I got interested in it.
Can you remember like why? Like how do you even go? Like so often we follow things that are examples we've been provided,
Yeah.
whether it's provided from our parents or our siblings or our friends, or maybe I don't know. I watched the Hawaiian Ironman and I got very
Oh,
excited about the idea of doing a triathlon. I
yeah.
still haven't done one, but that was years and years ago, and it got me quite fired up. So do you remember what is it about it, endurance sports, especially as a young person, that might have got you down
Yeah,
that track?
it's kind of a funny story. My parents would, of course, never buy me this, but I wanted a motorcycle. I wanted like a kid-sized motorcycle. And one of my friends, actually my best friend at that time, or still is my best friend, he came over to my house one day to go bike riding. He had this like really cool red helmet. His father was into cycling, not a racer, but he was into
Yeah.
cycling. So my buddy came over and he had this red helmet and it just looked like a motorcycle helmet. I'm like, well, that's cool. I want that. Like, and then so I got a helmet. And then not because it was safe or anything, for safety reasons. I did it because I thought it looked cool like a motorcycle.
That's funny.
And then that sort of kicked it all off. And then I eventually got a job at the local bike shop when I was like 14 or 15 stocking shelves, and then eventually became a mechanic and got into it that way. But yeah, it was my best friend who had this cool red helmet that kind of sparked my interest in, yeah, looking like a motorcyclist. And then instead of going the motor route, I went the pedaling route.
So I would have thought working in a bike shop too, you would have a lot of people coming in who are doing interesting things on bikes too. So
Oh,
you would
yeah.
have had that as an influence.
Yeah, for sure. And then they had a local racing team. So I joined the local cycling and racing team, and that's how I got into bike racing. And then I did that pretty seriously through, well, all my time as a teenager, pretty
Yeah.
much, and I did it a few years in college, and then we'll get into how I transitioned from that into running and everything. But yeah, I raced. I had an opportunity to race for the U.S. national team on the junior national team for a little bit. I raced over in Europe and
It's
Belgium
track.
and Holland as a junior, and got my butt kicked. And that's when I realized I should probably go to college because this isn't going to be a career for me, so on and so forth.
Was that track? That was track racing that you were doing then?
It was road
Oh,
racing.
road
So
racing.
like yeah, like Tour de France. Like I
Yeah.
didn't race the Tour de France, but it was that kind of cycling, road racing.
So
Yeah.
uh, who's the Australian guy who won the tour?
Oh, Cadell Evans.
Yeah, and the next one?
There's Cadell Evans.
Oh,
There
what's his
was
name? I should know. I was
yeah, I should know it too.
And do you know why I should know? Because he like lives down the road. Who grew up just down, like literally down
Oh,
the
does
road from
he?
where I live.
Oh,
Anyway, and I can't remember his name. I will remember before we finish. Anyway, um, so what about running? So when you were a kid, and here in Australia, you have to run at school. So we have carnivals and
yeah.
things, and unless you have a note to say why you can't, you have to go in cross country and carnival. So it's like at least two things you have to do a year
Okay.
as a kid at school. So is that the same in America?
Sort of, and from what I understand, it's not anymore, or maybe they're bringing it back. In the U.S., it's called the Presidential Fitness Test,
Oh,
and it's a series of different things like sit-ups, pull-ups.
oh wow.
I think crunches, or yeah, well, I already said sit-ups. A long jump, and one of them is a mile run. And it was never anything that's taken seriously. It's not like you train for it. Just one day you show up to gym class and you're like, okay, you're all running a mile, go. And then you can't walk for the rest of the week. So we did that, and I was always decent at that just because I had the cardiovascular fitness, but I
Yeah.
didn't have the leg adaptation. So like I could run pretty fast, but then I was like crippled for the rest of the week. But I did enjoy running. But
Okay.
yeah, it was really after I went. This college that I chose has a really good program for kinesiology. So
Yeah.
that's the main reason I went there. But the other reason is one of the guys that I raced over in Europe with went there as well, and he started a cycling team at this
Okay.
college. So I went to school there, and then the same year I went there, he transferred to University of Colorado, and then the cycling team kind of fell apart.
Oh,
So I still raced the first year or two just on my own bikes, and then I never, all I did was cycling
Yeah.
for sports in high school. And I really wanted to experience what it was like to be on a team. I never was like, as far as
Yeah.
scholastic or collegiate, I never had that. Even though I raced on bike teams, it's not the same.
Mm.
Um, and I was kind of getting burned out of cycling, and I just was sort of bored of it. So I tried out for I guess was the cross country team.
Yeah.
Um, and then that led to the track team. And yeah, and it was a great experience. I really kind of want to scratch that itch of what it's like to be in a, it's sort of an individual sport, but have that camaraderie of a team, collegiately. So yeah, I ran everything from what was it the 800 meters or the 1500 meters up to the 10,000, 5,000? That's been so long. I think maybe the 5,000. And then cross country, I forget what distances it were, but cross country was by far my favorite. I loved running off road, and I would train off road for cross country. So yeah. And then living in New York City, fast forward, the big race organization there is the New York Roadrunners. They put on
Hmm.
the New York City Marathon, and almost every weekend there's a race, usually anywhere from 4 to 10 miles. They have some other big ones like half marathons, but I mean these things look like full marathons. Each of these you'll get like 6 or 7 thousand runners. They have start
Wow.
waves, and so I would
That's
do those a lot in New York City just because it's easier than cycling too, just
yeah.
logistically.
Hmm.
So I always had fun doing the running races in New York as well, and so yeah, it was a blast. That's sort of my running story, if you will.
Yeah.
It's I'm not doing it right now. I'm just cycling now, but I'd like to get back into running as well.
What do you think it is that makes somebody like you who's come from a family, as we said at the very beginning, who, didn't necessarily provide an example of people who wanted to get out and do these, push themselves physically. So, I mean, obviously with your parents being professors, they push themselves mentally,
Yeah.
academically, but not physically. Why did you like, what's like, sometimes we wish you could package these little things, and because if we could replicate it, then more of us would be physically healthy as well as mentally.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I don't really know. I've always liked being active. I
Mm,
always, from the time I got my first little bike, I always loved just riding around. It was also a way for me to go exploring.
yeah,
I didn't have a car. I couldn't drive yet, but for me, but yet I could ride my bike over to my friend's house, and that was sort of a sense of freedom
yeah,
and a mode of transportation that was a lot faster than walking. So I kind of enjoyed that for sure. But I don't know. I just always loved physical activity. Like we had a little pond on our street, so I would play, pond hockey with the other kids, and I'd climb trees, and I was always just moving, I guess, and which is maybe, to my detriment, maybe why I didn't enjoy the school so much is because you can't, you're just sitting in a chair all day and you're not moving. Like so, but yeah, I think it was just I just always loved doing physical things, and I
yeah.
still do.
And what about the endurance side of it? Now, I mean, we'll fast forward. Well, we'll talk about UESCA in a minute. It just when the moment I said endurance made me think of UESCA. Um, it's making yourself uncomfortable. And again, there are a lot of kids enjoyed fast things like sprinting and things like that. But the moment it got to cross country, because that's obviously, a K and a half or 2Ks or 3Ks, and that felt like endurance for a child, and you got
Yeah,
uncomfortable.
yeah.
And you would whittle down to how many kids would go on and want to keep doing that. So, but obviously you did, because you went on and did a lot of endurancey type of things. So what do you think? Why do you think you wanted to push yourself all the time like that?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of enjoy it. I mean, it's kind of like, I don't know, maybe like a mental sickness or something, but I always
That we
it's
all
so
have
funny.
who listen to this podcast.
It's kind of weird though. Like I'm not I think physiologic, like I was always like I was really small and skinny, so I was always labeled as like the endurance kid, right? Like,
Yeah,
oh, he's good at climbing hills, on the bike, but I've never actually enjoyed like kind of like the ultra running distance. Like I get bored, I get
yeah,
hungry, and then I get like upset. So I've always kind of like doing things in the middle, but definitely, endurance distance type things. But within that distance realm, I've always just liked the intensity more than even volume, but not to
okay,
the extent that it's sprinting. Maybe because, I'm not a sprinter, like
yeah,
physiologically. But like for bike racing, for example, I always enjoyed really, really hard courses where the terrain and the intensity on the train would dictate who made it. Kind of the strongest wins, or the strongest makes it to the end. So I've always liked pushing myself, kind of to that pain point where a lot of other people quit.
Yeah.
And I think even you see it in business. I think there's a statistic out there that something like, I don't know, like 90% of the podcasts and blogs only have one, because people
Yeah.
do one and they expect to make $1 million and become the next Joe Rogan or whatever. And it takes consistency. It's a little bit painful, right? You got to keep at these things.
Oh my
And
gosh.
so I think that it translates to business for sure as well.
I think you'll be episode 600 and something. And
Wow.
I'm no
Wow.
Joe Rogan.
That's impressive.
And I'm
Yeah,
not
no,
making
that's
money
awesome.
from my podcast. But
Yeah, no, that's
I am enjoying it.
incredible.
So I've
Good for
got
you.
consistency. No, I've got endurance. That's what it is. I've got endurance.
Yeah, for
I love
sure.
that. I wanted to ask a little bit about your kinesiology, because in the podcast, as I said to you earlier, we dig into not just the activities that you do, the sports you do, but also your life. Like, what does your life look like? Because that makes you really relatable. Because otherwise, you're Rick Prince, who set up UESCA, and he did this, and he's ridden over there, and he's done these amazing things, and he's done some track, and he's done, so what we want to find out a little bit is some of the background behind all of that, the other things that you do. So tell us a little bit about the kinesiology.
Yeah, so again, I think it was that the cycling that really sort of piqued my interest in sport. And I didn't even know there was such a thing as sports science
Yeah.
when I first got into bike racing. Then I started researching, like, okay, what am I going to do with my life, kind of thing. My parents were obviously, being college professors, were obviously advocates of me continuing my education and going to college.
Yep.
And then I started researching. I'm like, oh my God, there's this thing called sports science, and there are these different fields. There's physical education, kinesiology, there's physical therapy, and all these different things pertaining to the body. And I've always been fascinated, cycling wise, with the biomechanics
Mm-hmm.
and like why people improve or people don't improve. And
Yeah.
to me, when I read the syllabus of what this kinesiology thing was, it seemed to kind of hit the mark. That seemed to be the thing that kind of would scratch that itch of, okay, this is where I'll learn the stuff that I've been wanting to learn.
Mm.
I didn't have any idea about, like, will this turn into a job? Is this a good idea or not? But that was sort of what really got me into kinesiology. And then, yeah, the classes I took there, anatomy and physiology, biomechanics, chemistry, biochemistry, and then a lot of other stuff. But yeah, it was sort of that sports background that got me interested in going for that degree.
Because a lot of people that I know with a sports background, they go into something like physio, for example.
Yeah,
They become a physiotherapist. So it's interesting that you chose kinesiology and as a
yeah,
path. But I mean, it also makes sense because, as you said, it's a physical thing, studying the
yeah.
body and how it
And it's
works. Mm.
And it's funny too, like I have a lot of friends that are, yeah, physios, physical therapists, athletic trainers,
Mm.
occupational therapists. A bunch of couple of my buddies from college are now orthopedic surgeons, and it's really cool stuff. But I did an internship my senior year of college for cardiopulmonary rehab. It was this hospital-based cardiopulmonary rehab, and there's you can get master's degrees in this, and I was pretty sure that's what I was going to do. I was going to go get my master's in cardiac rehab and do this. And then I worked there. I did my internship, and I absolutely hated it. I hated working I hated working in a hospital environment, but I
Yeah.
also didn't enjoy working in a population where these people are, I mean, it's really important. Don't get me wrong. And I'm
Yeah.
glad
Yeah.
people
Of
do
course.
it. But I didn't enjoy the fact that these people were there because they had to be there.
Yeah.
That their doctor told them to be there, or their, whatever. And it was dictated by insurance, how many visits they got. And in physical therapy is a similar thing, right? And
Mm.
and I just, I'm like, I don't want to do something where it's these people are there because they have to be. I want to do something where people would hire me because they want to be.
Yeah.
And therefore that sort of started my trajectory in the fitness industry, where I worked as a personal trainer and endurance coach. And then I got into fitness management later in my time in New York City, again, but all voluntary, right? People
Mm.
don't don't have to go to gyms. They pay to go to gyms. They pay to work with a personal trainer. So
Yeah.
that was sort of the route that I took, and why I decided, to your point, not to go and get an advanced degree in something like physical therapy or occupational therapy or things of that nature.
Yeah, it's interesting. The other thing about that is the goal, like the people who go and get a personal trainer, or all these other type of or that they hire other types of people that you're just referring to. It's often because they have a goal and they're trying to get their team around them to achieve that goal. And so maybe, you as one of the people that they hire become involved in helping them achieve that goal. And in a little
Yeah,
way, you sort of get a little bit of, oh, that's awesome. I helped them, get that,
for
whatever it
sure.
was. So that is quite a different mindset, isn't it? Than
It
somebody
is.
who's, recovering from something, or whatever, but they have a goal to recover perhaps, but there are other reasons that are making them turn up to those sessions and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I guess from a more holistic view, a health view, like, you can look at these sort of physical therapy and all those type things as sort of intervention, versus I wanted to be on the more prevention side of, like, how can I get these people healthy so that they, reduce their chance of getting hurt, or, have cardiopulmonary issues, so on and so forth. So that was sort of the other thing I learned in that internship, and I'm so grateful for that internship, with, because of, I think it's just as important to learn what you don't want to do sometimes as it is what you do want to do. So I was grateful for that opportunity.
Like that sort of comes down to the DNFs that we have in events and things like that too, isn't it?
Yes,
We learn more from those than
it,
when we
it's
finish
true.
often, even though we don't want a DNF. So it's kind of an interesting thing. Um, all right. Well, number one, I wanted to say I remembered who the cyclist is, and that was Ricky Port.
Oh
So,
yeah, Richie
yes,
Port.
yeah,
Yep.
Richie Port.
Yep.
Richie Port. I can't
Yeah.
remember his name
Yeah.
properly.
He's awesome.
Yeah, so he lived just down the road.
That's
Anyways,
amazing.
and his parents still do. So there you go. My husband was cycling on an old mountain bike into town, and he's one of those. He was actually almost an Olympic rower, so he's got that sort of background of
Mm,
very competitive. So whenever anyone cycles past him, he often will try and keep up, even though he's now 60, and the people going past him might be 20.
right.
Richie Port went past him one day. He tried to keep up on his own. It wasn't pretty.
Yeah.
He
That's a big ask.
no, he wasn't able to do it at all. So anyway, um, so why? Tell me about the start of UESCA. I really wanted to get into how you came about, because we've sort of wandered around your life a little bit, and what you studied, and your reasons behind these things. Tell me a little bit about how you ended up starting a company that is based around endurance sport and teaching coaches in particular.
Yeah, well, I would say, my biggest passion is still endurance sports. I
Mm.
love it. It's sort of like I've been either competitively or recreationally been doing endurance sports since I've been 14 years old. I feel like it's part of my DNA or my identity, or I don't know what the right word
Totally.
for it is.
Yeah.
But so yeah, I have this degree in kinesiology. I've been working in the personal training industry for 20 years. And the personal training industry, at least in the United States, is very similar to the coaching industry in the fact that it's not regulated at all.
Mm-hmm.
For example, to be a doctor, to be a lawyer, to be even say a plumber, you need to have licenses, you have
Yeah.
to go to school. None of that exists for coaching and personal training, for the better or worse. I'm not
Yeah.
quite sure.
Yeah.
But as a result, there's this wide range of expertise out there. You have
Mm-hmm.
some amazing coaches, some not so amazing coaches, and everything in between. And I want to preface all this by saying that even though I run a certification company and I think our content is quite good, it just by getting a certification certainly doesn't, by education, make you a great coach.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of amazing coaches that don't have certifications, clearly. But what I found is that when I would talk to trainers, when I would talk to people in the endurance sports industry, the standard of which people were being educated, I felt, was really low, and there was no consistency there. For example, I had the USA Cycling Level
Mm-hmm.
1 coach, and it was so. When I say rudimentary, I mean this didn't help me do anything. And I'm
Okay.
like, and people are walking around out there with this certification saying, I'm a cycling coach, and people are hiring them because they think they know what they're talking about and they
Mm,
don't. Um, so that was really the catalyst. I just felt that, for lack of a better word or words, I could do a better job.
mm,
Um, and I felt like if I tailored the certification, and I also modeled it after a mini 4 year degree. So
mhm.
when I took my kinesiology degree, your first 2 years are all foundational information, all
Yep.
foundational courses. It's anatomy one, anatomy two, lab,
Mhm.
biomechanics. You had to learn about how the body works before you can apply it later in
Yep.
your junior and
Yep.
senior year. And so all of our certifications are built that way. So the first modules are all that anatomy, physiology, all that kind of stuff. And then it goes into the application. Because what I found was that you could really, there was a lot of application, but really no foundation to a lot of the courses that were out there. And I just felt that how can you really help coaches or help athletes
Mm.
if you don't understand how the body works? And you can
Yep.
fake it for a little while, but when
Yep.
something happens, if you don't understand how the aerobic system works or how recovery works from a physiological standpoint, you're kind of in trouble. And if you're going to charge money and say you're this qualified coach, you should truly be qualified. So in a nutshell, that's why I did it. I just felt that I reviewed all the content out there of most of the major certifications, and I just felt it wasn't great, and I felt I could do a better job. The funny thing is, I asked probably five or six people, friends and
Yeah.
people I knew. I'm like, is this a good idea? And they all said it was a terrible idea. Like, this is literally, they're like, don't do that. That's stupid. It's too small of a niche. There's already national governing bodies that do this. Why are they going to get Rick Prince's running coach certification? Who the hell are you to just randomly start a running certification? When they could get one from, say, USA Triathlon or USA Track and Field. It's like, you're nobody. So everyone said it was a terrible idea, which I don't think it was. But I think it was more just a stubbornness is me. Like, hopefully I'll sell at least one or two of these things, but I just had to do it because I just so passionately felt that the education wasn't good, and that's why I started it.
It's that asking your friends and family is probably a great place to go if you don't want to do something, because that's always going to, because their view on stuff is to protect you. Like, they don't want
Yeah,
you to go do something and then fail. And so,
yeah. In addition to them, I even asked other people that like were my sort of friends, but like more just like acquaintances
yeah,
that were in the
yeah.
industry. They're like, no, don't do that. That's terrible. That's the stupidest idea ever.
And so when you did start it, like ignoring everybody's opinions, why didn't it fail? Like, or did it fail? Were there failing moments? I assume that there were, because that's no business gets off the
Yeah,
ground and goes straight
yeah.
to success.
It was hard, and I'll be honest, for the first year or two, I'm like, oh God, all my friends were right. Like, this was a bad idea. I knew that it was going to be a slow burn. I knew I
Yeah.
had to play the long game.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't start it full time. I mean, I didn't start it as a full time thing. I was still doing personal training. So it started as a side gig. So I
Mm-hmm.
still had income coming in, and I could afford to, in my opinion, do things the right way, not get outside investors, even if someone would give me money for this crazy idea. And But it wasn't until we moved out to Colorado in 2018 that basically I put all the chips in and said, okay, this thing has to work. But now, since I'm not doing personal training on the side and getting up at 4 in the morning, hopefully I'll have more energy to put forward to it, to really accelerate the growth. And fortunately, that happened. And then it was still a solo thing.
Yeah.
And then eventually I brought on my partner, who's now, I don't know how I function without her, Cindy Abrami. Now we have Tessa, who's our administrative assistant. So it's grown to the point now where I have more resources. But yeah, the first 1 or 2 years, I won't lie. I mean, there were times when I was like, okay, I got to go on the job search page and see if I can get a job, or kind of crying in the corner, be like, this was the
Oh,
worst idea ever. How am I going to make rent, kind of thing. I mean, it wasn't pretty, that's for sure. But I think that's the story with most startups, right? Like,
oh,
it's
absolutely.
it's really difficult. I think it takes a certain amount of stubbornness and maybe craziness to do these things, and to stay with it. But you have to stay with it to get past that initial really painful period.
Tell me about it. I've been in online business in one shape or another since about 2004.
Oh, wow.
Like a
Okay.
long time. No,
Yeah. Yeah. So
a
you
really
get
long
it.
time. So I do understand all of that. What I wanted to ask you about a little bit is the endurance side of it. On the podcast, we've talked quite a lot to people. I talked to, somehow I've fallen into talking to a lot of people about more endurance running versus shorter running. I talk to everybody who runs, but we seem to have got a lot more into ultra sort of distances in
Yeah.
the last few years. It's just the way it's gone. But I also think, and I don't know if I'm just coloured because of that, but it feels like the world is as a whole leaning like heading more towards endurance slash ultra type of events like we seem to
Yeah.
be. It's become more the norm. Yes, when I was younger, doing my first marathon, it was like, wow, there's only 1% of people who do marathon, or something. But now it seems like, and I've heard this recently, like so many people do marathons, it's like almost, yep, you did a marathon, okay, well, so is everybody. So uh,
Yeah.
whereas actually, I was talking to Faith the other day, and she was saying that she read somewhere that someone had told her that only 1% of people now do ultra. So it's kind of this. There's been this move, and I wonder whether you starting this company, even though it feels like I've only known about it for say 3 years, but you've obviously had it around for almost 10. Um, but you're on this wave or a swing of this ultra slash endurance events that, well, not just events, but that people who are, into these kind of sports, it's leaning more towards that. I don't know if I'm
Yeah.
explaining it very well, but
Yeah.
it does feel like it's a good time, I guess, for something like UESCA to be putting its hand up and saying, it's not all just about track and field or whatever the cycling versions of those are, and that there are things that are important for our body and our mind that take us further, and that tends to be endurance. Like we talk a lot about getting uncomfortable and stuff on the podcast
Yeah.
in that way, but it does feel like the world is swinging that way. Is
Yeah. For
I right?
sure. Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think that to your point, sort of ultra, 100 milers are sort of the new marathon, I think,
Exactly.
to your
It's
point.
crazy.
And I think people on one side of the on one side of the equation, people are always looking for more of a challenge, right? And you
Mm,
said a lot of people have now done marathons and they're like, okay, I could keep doing marathons and they're great and they're a challenge, but I've already done four. So what's next?
yeah.
And we see now a fair amount of like I know Des Linden's moving over to the ultra. I forget, I'm blanking on her name, but she was the medalist at the Olympics for the marathon. She's already moved over to
Ultra.
ultra and she's already won a bunch of stuff. So I think it's sort of a natural progression in some
Mm,
ways. I think too, ultra certainly doesn't have to be, ultra running doesn't have to be on trails, but a lot of
mm,
times it is. And what we found also with UESCA is the sports that are really blowing up and where there's the most interest typically are also not on roads. Like gravel
mm.
cycling is huge, and
Yes.
gravel typically is more long distance. The
Yeah.
races are typically long. And I think, more cycling than running, but you can't go a week without hearing, someone else just got mowed over by a car and killed. And I just think, in the age of just everything that's going on crazy in the world and everything, people want to get out on the trails. They want to be in nature.
Mm,
They want to get away from, cars and other people. And I think that there's sort of this natural gravitation towards doing things on trails or on gravel or anything but pavement. So I think that's another factor as well. And I know like when I trained for cross country, I was always training on trails. Like it wasn't really a thing then, but that's what I was doing, and I always enjoyed it much more than running on the roads. It was much more peaceful. It was more just better in every way. So yeah, I think it's sort of maybe that in combination with people are always looking for that next challenge, and I think for a lot of people, there's a lower barrier to entry, if you will, to doing distance than to increasing speed. So for runners that, okay, I want to get faster, but I don't really have a lot more in me to get a lot faster in this 5K. I'm already going as fast as I
yeah.
humanly can. So the other variable is distance. So let's try that. So I think maybe that's another one as well that we hear. But I can certainly tell you of our certifications that we sell. Ultra running is the best selling certification, but ultra
Mm,
running isn't far behind.
mm,
And the first year we had an ultra running conference, and it was an amazing
I wanted to
experience where,
come, but you too far away.
yeah,
I did
yeah,
see it.
well,
I was like, oh,
we'll have to do one in Australia.
so
But
good.
yeah, like within 5 minutes, everybody was everyone's best friend. Everyone knew all the races, Hard Rock,
Yeah.
Leadville, UTMB, and everyone knew all the same people. So it's such a niche thing as well. I think people really enjoy that because it feels there's a camaraderie as well,
Mm.
which with general running, or we always call it like normal running or road running, it's you don't have that because you'll have beginners, you have advanced, and everything in between. But ultra running, everyone has that shared knowledge and passion for it. So it's a very unique, cool thing.
There's again, that's something we've talked about quite a bit on the podcast with a lot of ultra trail runners, or even just trail runners, and that is, it's not even just the camaraderie, but it's that we're all out there doing something hard, and if
Yeah,
something goes wrong for one of us, and someone else comes across you, then everybody helps each other out because
yeah,
that's the way it is, because we're all in this together. It's almost like um, you know, yeah, I guess we're all doing this hard thing together, and we will help each
yeah,
other through it. It's kind of like a team event without it being a team event, even though it's so, which I
yeah.
love that. You know,
Yeah, it's a great dynamic, and it's one that you don't find in a lot of other sports for
mm,
sure. That sort of, you know, just everyone's there together, everyone wants to see others succeed. It's a pretty unique thing, I think.
yeah, it's love. I don't know what it's like with the gravel bike stuff. I assume it would be the same.
It used to be that, and I think just like among the lower level amateurs, I think it still is that. But certainly at the pro level and at the very elite level, it's basically similarly to what I was saying with Molly Seidel, that's her name, the runner.
Yeah,
Similar to how a lot of these Olympian road runners are moving into ultra. A lot of road racers, either newly retired professionals, like say the Richie Ports of the world,
yeah,
or just people that are really really fast because there's not really a road cycling scene in the U.S. because of permitting issues and everything. So
yeah.
gravel is really the big thing. So at the high end, it's not that at all. It's
Competitive.
really cutthroat. It's really competitive. But sort of at the lower levels, I think it still has that cool vibe to it, where
Yeah.
people are in it for the joy of it and help other people. And it's like, yeah, the first gravel race I did, I was blown away because I'm used to road racing where people elbow you and curse at you, and I'm in this group of riders. Everyone's like talking and being nice. I'm like, what the hell is this? Like, why are you being nice to me?
Like
It's
a
like
Sunday ride.
yeah, it was like a foreign concept to me. I'm like, what? So, but yeah, it's great.
I love that. Like, one of the things I really like about ultra, which you kind of hit on before, and that is we get to a certain speed. We can't go any faster. Well, we probably
Right.
could, but unless you're training for the Olympics or whatever, that's not the purpose of why you're doing it. You don't want to just squish out another couple of seconds. It's not. It takes away the fun of it, actually, in the end.
Yeah.
You do that too much.
Yeah.
So the next thing is distance. Like, how far can I go? And
Right.
I love that that feels really utilitarian. I love that that feels like anybody can go out there and test themselves to go as far as they can. And with ultra running, especially ultra trail running, that involves a lot of walking as well. And I just love that part of it because it does make it feel so like anybody can give it a go as long as they've trained appropriately and all of that sort of stuff. It's kind of
Yeah.
it creates opportunities for people who aren't Olympic and never going to be any kind of special athlete to do things which are considered to be, pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And so self-esteem and all the other stuff that comes with it, not to mention just time on the trail and what that does for your mental health. I just think it's an amazing time that it is more accepted now, that
Yeah.
you're not just a
Completely.
weirdo like you were growing up, as you said, amongst your, it almost feels like it's not, every day is not the right thing to say, but it just feels like there's this big swing, which comes back to the this time of you doing UESCA and that endurance side, that more of us are trying to achieve these things and do sort of
Yeah.
amazing things out there.
Yeah, no, it's great to see. And I think, again, going back to the community aspect, when you think about just overall health,
Mm.
having social connection, especially, to people that you feel you have something in common with is so important. And I think that's the other great thing about, these sort of, I don't want to maybe niche, I'm not sure if that's the right word, but these sports like ultra where, there's a shared goal, is trying to in it together. Like there's so many really unique, very cool things about it that are about more than just the physical aspect of it as well. And I think, the social aspect, community aspect, and I think that's why, like even just, again, regular running, like run clubs are so popular
They
now.
are.
It's like whether, and I think that maybe one half of it is for the actual, okay, I like to run or I'm doing it for my health or whatever. And the other half is for the social connection. I just want to get out there and meet people, and I don't want to go to the bar and drink and meet people. I want to do something, different. So yeah, I think the overall movement, I know there's lots of terms thrown around like longevity, health span,
Mm.
lifespan, but there's more of a focus on that now. And I think it is getting more people out doing physical things, which sometimes culminate in the ultra distance. Like, at least in the US, alcohol sales are plummeting to the point where
Yeah,
wineries are going out of
it's the
business,
same here.
microbrews.
I totally have heard
Yeah,
that here. Mm.
yeah, and it's not just that, the baby boomer population are
Mm.
dying and they were the wine drinkers. It's also that this younger population just isn't into that. Like when I was in college, it was like a drink fest. It's just like drink as much as you can. Versus now it's like, hey, let's go to do run clubs. Let's not go to the bar. So there's a very unique shift going on, and I think it's certainly for the better. Unless you're a winery owner, then
That's
it's
right.
probably not.
I live actually amongst a whole bunch of wineries, which is
Oh,
interesting. Not that I drink much wine. I did want to. I had a really good question. Where did it go? It just slipped out of my head. I bet that happens when I should say Rick also has a podcast, everybody. So we'll put links to to that in the show notes as well, so that you can see how a professional podcast is created versus mine.
no,
You
not at all.
you do a video version as well. Like yours is done on video. Like we are video, but I don't tend to put the video out. We just tend to just do the audio
Yeah.
as well. So that's a bit of a. So you can go and listen to Rick's and watch him as he does a podcast, which will be a lot of fun, I'm sure. Um, what I wanted to talk about very briefly was the uncomfortableness. I know I've mentioned it a few times. Um, the fact that in our daily life, like I'm staring right now at two screens. I've got my iPad there and there's my phone and I've got screens all around me, and our lives are just so they're comfortable, but they're also very this thing's being input into us all of the time. We very
Yeah.
rarely just have thinking time. I was talking to my husband about this the other day. Um, and to me, when I get out on the trails and I go running, and maybe when you go do your cycling, whatever it is that you do, it does give you that opportunity to think. And I wonder whether maybe that's why now we see that plus COVID. That's why we see perhaps so many of the next generation coming up choosing what perhaps we would call healthier paths to because of all of this stuff we have always coming in. That going and doing these things gives them an opportunity to just be without all of that input. Just thinking
Yeah.
time, downtime,
Yeah.
kind of.
I, I I think you're right. I mean, there's so much input coming in. Like you said,
Mm.
to your point, I have my email up here. I've got, and it's constant. And you have to be very intentional now about. I mean, there are apps that you can download to prevent you from logging into your phone.
There's
I
technology to
mean,
help you with the technology.
yeah, there's technology to help you with your technology. It's crazy. And I do think you're right. I think certainly for me, like sitting in front of a computer, I never have any good ideas. It's always just processing whatever's in front of my face. It's always when I'm playing with my son, when I'm out, going for a walk or a bike ride, or even in the shower,
Yeah,
brushing my teeth. It's always then
yeah,
that no, I never have good ideas sitting in front of the computer. It's always just task driven. And it's exhausting. It's completely exhausting. And I think that you're right. I think one of the big drivers for people to get out, and it could be any hobby, right? If it's someone wants to go to the shooting range or someone wants to go, fly fishing or whatever, like doing something that where you're not in front of a screen, where your phone is not blowing up in front of your face, where you can have dedicated time away from it. But it takes being intentional to do that. And I think years ago, we didn't have all this stuff. Your kind of life was that. And now you have to go out of your way to get that, which is sort of disturbing, but, it is what it is. But yeah, I do think that's a big driver for people to do endurance things, but especially to your point, Michelle, things again off the beaten path, going in the woods and going for a trail run or a mountain bike ride or whatever, not just going on the road where, okay, I still have to be really attentive to not getting run over by a car. I mean, not that you don't have to be attentive when you're in the woods too, but it's kind of a different thing. There's a little more solitude.
Yeah, a bit more grounding even.
Yeah.
Mm. So you said you're not running at the moment. That's what you said earlier, wasn't it? Like that's not in part of
Yeah.
your routine. So what are you doing? How is
So
Rick Prince keeping fit right now?
yeah, I'm getting back into cycling. So when I lived in New York, when I was working as a personal trainer, especially in the later part, I was a private trainer. So my clients lived all over Manhattan, and the easiest way to get there is riding your bike.
Yeah.
So I did that, but because that was my way of making a living. I didn't do bike racing at that time because if I crashed and broke my collarbone, then I can't make money, right?
Yeah.
So that's why I did running. And also cycling, it's fine to bike around New York City just for transportation, but biking for training, for racing is very difficult. You have to be up at like 5 in the morning in the park, in Central Park before all the craziness happens. And I have personal training clients then, so I couldn't do that. But now that I live in Colorado, there's all these amazing bike trails and all this great stuff. And so I've kind of refound my passion, if you will, for cycling. So I've been doing that a lot more, but I do want to get back more into running as well. Hopefully, I've been having some issues with my hamstring, so I'm seeing a physical therapist. So hopefully I'll get back out there soon and give it a go and maybe do a couple little, no ultras for me quite yet. I'm not quite at your level, but maybe a couple 5Ks or something.
So like you have a company that's all about endurance. I'm trying to work out what endurance do you have in your life or are you planning to have in your life? Like
Yeah,
in the
so I
future?
do. Yeah, so I do gravel races. I
Yeah.
did 3 last year. I want to do some more this year. But yeah, for me, like running, I've like the longest running race I've ever done. Like I've trained longer, but the longest running race I ever did was 10 miles. It was a Bronx 10 miler in New York City, and I thought it felt like an ultra to me. I'm like, oh, when is this
16K.
thing ever going to end? Um, but I want to do some trail races out here. Probably not at the ultra distance, but some trail races and just experience, running off road and doing stuff like that. And I'm someone that it's hard for me. I think it's because I'm like maybe naturally lazy or something, but I need like motivation. Like I can't just go and ride my bike or I can't just go out for a run. I need to have a race on the schedule to train for. Otherwise, I don't have the motivation to get my butt off the chair or out of bed. So I think that'll be good motivation to just sign up for like a 5 or 10K trail race and go do it.
That'll make it happen for sure.
Yeah.
Now I wanted to ask you, why did you move to Colorado?
So, I mean, well, from a business standpoint, the Front Range of Colorado, Boulder is certainly a hotbed of endurance athletics. Colorado Springs is as well. Colorado Springs has the Olympic Training Center. It's got Carmichael Training Systems. That's where Jason Koop works for, who was our contributor to the ultra running course.
Yeah.
So the whole Front Range out here is really big for endurance sports. And I wanted to be in a location where I could meet with people face to face and I could develop these relationships. From a personal side, I've always wanted to live out here. As I mentioned, my parents were both professors, so they didn't work during the summer. My grandparents, after they retired, they were big music fans. My grandfather was actually a professor of music at University of Kansas City in Missouri, and my grandmother was a professional accompanist on the piano.
Oh
So a
my
big
gosh.
classical music fan. So they
Wow.
would rent a condo in Aspen for the whole summer for the Aspen Music Festival. So my parents, we would come out here every summer for like 2 or 3 months, stay with them in their condo because it was free and my parents didn't work during the summer. So I spent a lot of my summers out in Colorado and I always wanted to move out here. And I wish I moved out here a lot sooner. I moved to New York City and all of a sudden 20 years happened and I'm like, oh no, I'm still in the city. And
Oh,
but yeah, when our son was born, we couldn't afford to, raise him in the city. Nor would I want to, even if I did have the money. So So, and then I was starting this business. So it just seemed like a natural move to move out here to Colorado.
Okay. Oh, now I know. Now I know why you moved
Yeah.
out there.
Yeah.
One of the things I often ask people on the podcast is an identity question. And I usually ask them, when did you call yourself a runner? Do you call yourself a runner? What do you call yourself? Well, you mentioned identity yourself earlier, as well. So what do you call yourself, or do you? Like,
Yeah, I don't really. I mean, at one point, my identity was 100% wrapped up in being a cyclist. That's
yeah.
all I did. That's all I cared about. I ate, slept, breathed it. I never, even though I ran collegiately and did quite a bit of running afterwards, I never considered myself a runner because I don't know. I've always I'm that cyclist. But now I'm just, Rick Prince, business owner, trying to stay healthy and, that's about it. I definitely, I want to do some bike races. I want to do some running races, but from a sport perspective, no. And in fact, I want to kind of do some other things that the one thing about cycling is, even though I've gotten slower over the years, is that I know how to do it, and I know how to run. And through UESCA, I know all this information now about training. And so I've always wanted to do something that I have no experience in education in whatsoever, and just really suck at something new is a new experience and sort of a new challenge. So I don't know what that is, but I'm kind of looking for something because I've always done endurance things or, cardiovascular things. So I'm looking to do something totally outside that realm at some point. So we'll see what that is. I don't know.
I just my brain said pickleball.
So my wife is doing pickleball. So we have a gym membership at this gym, and so she's taking lessons there, and she's in like a group league, and actually it's so funny. I forget her name, but she's the president of the U.S. Trail Running Alliance. I forget the name of it. She was a sponsor of one of the sponsors of our first trail running thing. And when I had to pick up pamphlets from her for our conference, I had to meet her at a pickleball place. And she's like, I'm addicted. This is about, I don't even run anymore, apparently. I just play pickleball. It's the best thing ever. So
That's crazy.
yeah, people love it.
Again, I'd never heard of pickleball till somebody from America that I spoke to on the podcast, like a few years ago now, said that they were playing pickleball. And now, I hear it here too. I've got some friends who play pickleball. I'm like, it's just taken over. It's crazy.
It's like the biggest thing ever.
I know. It's like, I've never played.
If I were smart, which I'm clearly not, I'd start like a pickleball certification or something.
Oh, you totally should. Off you go.
That's where the money's at, I think.
That's right. It's in pickleball.
Yeah.
So when it comes to injuries, have you had many injuries that have really interrupted whether it's, cycling or whatever it is you were doing at the time?
Yeah, not so much cycling. I mean, that was more just like crashing all the time and breaking bones and things of that nature. But yeah, running, I've had, hip injuries, hamstring injuries. I think the quads are the only things that were I've not injured. Stable. So I'm sure that's a box I need to probably check off at some point. But yeah, I've had tons of injuries, and you go to physical therapy, you go to doctors and things like that. But yeah, my mechanics, I always think they're pretty good, but then, I get evaluated and I'm like a complete train wreck. So yeah, sure, I need to work on that.
How do you cope with it when you do get injured? Like if you're in the middle, say you've got one of these goals and, an event coming up, and that's what's motivating you to get out of bed, and then you get an injury that slows down your training or interrupts your training. How do you cope with that?
Yeah, not well. Pretty much everything that we say in our certifications, probably I don't do. It's like, rest, don't do this. I'm like, okay, so I'll only do 2 miles today, and I'll see if my leg falls off after that or something, So yeah, I there's like stages, right? Like there's denial, then there's anger, and then there's just like, screw it, I'm just going to do it anyway. And see, I don't care if I can't walk for a month afterwards. I got to do it. I pay the entry fee. I'm going to train. I think there's a level of stubbornness and competitiveness which I have, which is probably to my detriment. It's and I think the other thing is, like, my wife never understood this either. Like when we would do these New York Roadrunner races, she would be like, well, I'm just going to run it. Like she qualified for Boston. She's like, I'm like, well, what's your goal for Boston? She's like, I'm not going to run. I just want to enjoy it. And I just want to go out there and run. I'm like, what the hell is wrong with you? Like, no, you have to race it. You have to go as fast as you can, because you got into Boston. And so I can't, and this is again where it's like, clearly should be seeing a therapist. Like, I always have to, like, from the second the gun goes off, I go as hard as I can. Like, I always race. I can't just go out there if I paid money for an entry fee and just like do, 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 do. So yeah, so to your point, when I would have these injuries, I couldn't just like run walk it. I'd have to go out there and run it. Inevitably, it would make it worse, right? And then
Yeah.
now I'm not running for 2 months or 3 months, and so basically, I'm an idiot, is what I'm saying.
There's
That's
seasons.
the system.
Something that I say on the podcast is there are seasons for everything, Rick. And so maybe you've had your season for being an idiot, and going forward you can choose a different season. You
I
can
like that.
move into something else. You don't have to be stuck there. Just like
Yeah,
you don't have to be stuck in, this is one of my pet things, when people just go flat out all the time, like that is all. And it might be because I'm considerably older than you, and I've realized that actually that doesn't work anymore. That being
right,
really competitive and trying to just go as fast as they can all the time, because it ends
right.
up slowing me down. So I
Yeah,
may as well go a bit slower to start with and enjoy
yeah,
it, like your wife said.
right,
So it's
right.
and especially with this ultra endurance stuff, it sounds like a silly sort of kitsch thing to say, but that slowing down to go is not necessarily faster, but often it is faster, but slowing down
Yeah,
to go further as well,
for sure,
is
for sure.
something that you should probably have as a mantra, and you'll find that you'll be
Yeah,
next thing you know, you'll be signing up to an ultra distance trail,
right, right,
and because you won't be wanting to like race it, if that's the right word, like
right.
do it as a speed endurance thing. But
Yeah.
you're still a youngster, you've got plenty of time.
Well, I'm not that young.
Um, how do you stay motivated? Now, you talked about having a goal. So if you have an event that you're heading for, there's that kind of scary thing, I better train for it, or it's going to be even harder. Um, so even having that goal there, what happens when it's like raining, when you wake up in the morning and it's a day that you've got scheduled to do, something in your training? How do you motivate yourself to get out the door, even though you've
Yeah,
got the
well,
goal?
well, again, right now I'm kind of just doing cycling, so I'm kind of lucky. I have an indoor bike trainer, so I can do that if it's raining. But I don't want to say it's burnout, but I often get like I just lose motivation
Mm.
sometimes. Like
Yeah,
I've already done this for
yeah.
3 or 4 weeks of training, and honestly now, like I don't have a coach. I probably should, but a lot of
You
times that
know
just
some.
won't. Yeah, I know a few. I just won't do it,
Yeah.
and it's is it the right way to train? Absolutely not. But what I found, I think for myself recently, certainly my son, he just turned 8 years old,
Oh,
um, is that, with the business, we're about to launch, or I'm about to launch a brand new business in the fitness side, fitness certification. So that's launching in July. So almost all my attention is over there. That's been a
yeah.
pretty big lift. So yeah, between the businesses and being a dad and all that stuff that goes along with that, and just household stuff that everyone
Yeah.
deals with, um, like I wouldn't even call it training anymore. It's as much of a mental thing for me, just to like burn off anxiety, or
Mhm.
just do something physical, and also for my brain. So what I've found for me personally, especially with this business, is if I pressure myself and say, "Oh, I don't really want to run or ride today," but I'm going to really push myself to anyway. I do that a lot, and sometimes it really works out, but oftentimes it makes it worse. Then it just like I just kind of get like, oh God, now I just feel worse, and I wish I would. So a lot of times, I'll be honest, I just don't do it, and I just, and then it just mentally keeps me in a better place, and I don't feel so like pressured to do it anymore. Like I
Or
have this
drained.
pressure, like, oh my God, if I don't do this thing, then my coach is going to kill me, and all these kind of things like that. So yeah, I would say I'm probably not the most consistent athlete out there when it comes to a training program.
It's an interesting balance and a juggle, though, isn't it?
It
Because
is.
it's that we all talk about it, even as coaches to other people. Um, it's that tapping into your intuition and listening to your body, and
Yeah.
not doing it is just as valid as pushing through. And as you said, sometimes when you push through it works, and sometimes when you don't push through it works. So it's and vice versa. So it's understanding, and I think a lot of us still are trying to work out exactly really listen to our body, and is that really an injury? Is that really, da 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 da?
Yeah.
It's an interesting thing we're always trying to struggle with, I think, all of us.
Yeah. And I think too, like if I just feel just fatigued from work or from whatever, and if I was, supposed to do a hard workout today,
Mhm.
I'll still get on the bike, but I'll do like just an hour or something, and
Yeah,
I'll just, soft pedal around
yeah,
and just to do something.
yeah,
So yeah, I don't really have a schedule I follow per se. It's more of just being active and doing something. And in for sure at the forefront of my mind now is just overall health, mental, physical versus, hey, I got to go win this bike race. That part has definitely shifted for me, for
yeah,
sure.
yeah.
It's more about the health perspective than anything else. So
Uh, Interesting to your point about being, an entrepreneur and all of the work and mental work that takes. Uh, I read something the other day just about how much calories and things you're burning, and how even just sitting at the computer or wherever you're doing that mental work takes a lot of energy. Like it uses a lot of
yeah,
energy in your body. So if you actually do feel drained, even though you haven't, done any exercise, that doesn't mean that your body hasn't been working really hard and using up all the resources that it has. So that,
right.
yeah, which is what the effect that you're feeling, I think, from a
Yeah,
hard day
yeah,
at
I would
work.
agree.
Mm.
I would agree.
Well, I wanted, before we wrap up, because I've already kept you for an hour and I'm really good at that, we could just keep going and going, Rick Prince. Lots of things I'd like to talk to you about. Um, you just gave us a little insight into something that's coming to UESCA, or the things that you're going. I wanted to, like, what is the future of UESCA, and where you see this business that takes up so much of your time going to?
Yeah, so UESCA is going to still continue. One of our big focuses right now is we just had our running certification translated into Latin American Spanish.
What?
So we're going to start really putting a focus on the international expansion. Like already about 50% of our coaches are US based and the other 50% are international.
That's amazing.
I think we've sold certifications in over like 105 countries or something like that right now. So it's already international, but
Congratulations.
it's all in English. So
So
we're
good.
looking the first three we're looking to eventually do with our certifications, or at least our main ones, maybe like
Mm-hmm.
running, ultra running, so on and so forth,
Mm-hmm.
are Spanish, Arabic, and Hindi. We
Wow.
have quite a big demographic from the Middle East and from India, and then maybe get into some other languages like Japanese, French, so on
Yeah.
and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then we don't see ourselves adding a lot more certifications, where there will
Mm-hmm.
certainly be version two, or the next version of the current certifications as more research and
Mm-hmm.
findings come out to make sure that we're up to date.
Yeah.
Um, our real growth is going to come through specialization courses.
Yeah.
One of the things that we're working on right now, which will actually be offered free, it'll be you don't have to pay for it. It's going to be a self-defense,
Oh,
but
wow.
real self-defense. Like
Yep.
if you have no other choice in a
Mm-hmm.
matter, what do you do? And the other one along those lines is going to be developed by this person, Natasha Swartley. She's also a UESCA coach. She's a 20-year Navy veteran, but she is a wilderness EMT. She's a trail medic, so she goes to a lot of the big trail races. She's the
Yeah.
medic there at aid stations.
Mm-hmm.
Is self-autonomy on the trail. So when you're out there in the middle of nowhere and
Something happens.
something happens that you can't be rescued, or you can be, how to basically take care of yourself and how to prepare yourself so you don't end up in bad situations.
Yeah.
So because again, sadly, as you know, probably, Michelle, with some frequency, at least in the US, we hear specifically usually about women
Mm.
being assaulted when they're
Mm.
out on the trail, especially if they're by themselves, and it's really horrible. So this self-defense course that we're going to be putting together, again, like I said, it's not that like stop, go away. I mean,
Yeah.
it talks about bone breaking and levers and
Wow.
basically,
Yeah.
do everything you can to get away, but if you have no choice, this is what you do. So
Yeah.
it's the real deal. So
Wow.
we're working on those two products. Are going to be for free because we feel the information is that important for public safety,
Yeah.
on how to basically save yourself out there, whether it's you're lost in the woods and something happens, or if, God forbid, you're in a situation where you have to defend yourself. So
Wow.
those are two big
That's
things that are coming
amazing.
up.
Wow, I'll be looking out for those. And just to anybody else interested, I will put a link, obviously, to the UESCA website too. There is a lot of amazing articles and your podcast and things that go on there as well. And I'm continually learning new things. So thank you for bringing all that out there.
Yeah,
You
thank you.
you mentioned the other fitness side as well. Tell me just a little bit about that.
Yeah. So again, as I mentioned, I spent 20 years of my career in that industry in most every role from personal trainer to general
Mm-hmm.
manager. And yeah, and the fitness, in my opinion, the fitness certifications, it's a much more robust industry, the education industry, much more established. There's a
Mm-hmm.
few really well-established players, but it's largely the content is okay. It's better than the endurance sports industry,
Yeah.
but it's really the policies. It's really one big money grab. And over the time of running UESCA, we've learned what works. You don't have to continually upsell people and hard sell people. And, God forbid you return emails on time and you're a nice human being. And so we feel there's a lot of things that can change. So the new company is the Academy of Integrated Human Performance. And our first certification, which is already done, is the Integrated Strength and Performance Coach certification. So it's going to be geared towards the fitness industry, essentially a personal training certification,
Yeah.
launching beginning of July. I believe we're going into pre-sale beginning of June. So we'll be running two companies there obviously they share a lot of
Yeah.
similarities. They're both online education, but just two different markets.
Yeah. Well, and they're both about, having a healthier body. And they're both a
Yeah,
lot of physiology would be very similar across those.
for sure.
And will you link the two? So if somebody, goes to the UESCA site, will they be able to see a link to go over to the other business as well?
Yeah, for sure. And we're going to announce it because we know that a lot of UESCA coaches are also personal
That would be
training.
quite a good target market.
Yeah, or at least want to be as well. So we're actually going to offer a discount and maybe a different type of pre-sale to the UESCA demographic as well. But yeah, they're going to be linked as well, to your point, Michelle. We're excited to kind of break into a new industry, and it's an industry personally I know a lot better than the endurance sports industry from an educational standpoint. So it's one that I'm really excited to get into.
Oh, that sounds very exciting. And it'll be a little bit more, I shouldn't say this, to keep you from signing up to anything big and challenging training wise because you
Yeah.
have so much business stuff to do.
Yeah, it's gonna be a lot, but I think it's gonna be fun, and I think we've learned so many lessons about what to do and what not to do with UESCA as far as online education and customer service. When we first started that, it was a lot of just throwing stuff against the wall and seeing what would stick, and now we've kind of figured out most of it, I feel, and that so going into this business, knowing what would work or should work is not so much of a guessing game. We have the proof behind it. So yeah, it's a little less daunting, I think, than starting UESCA where I really had no idea what I was doing. Some
Oh,
days still don't feel like I don't, but
I don't know. I think you do a great job. You really do. So, and we appreciate everything that you do and providing the
thank you.
offerings that you have. It's just amazing. And that's from all the way on the other side of the world. So thank you very much.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Well, Rick, it has been a delight. Before we go, one of the things I often will ask people is to give people some tips for motivation. And we kind of talked a little bit about your motivation tips, but for yourself personally. But what tips would you give other people who are, they're running, or if they're listening to this podcast, they're probably running. Their running is sort of waning a little bit and, coming and going. What kind of tips could you give them to, stay motivated as much as possible?
Yeah, certainly a goal helps. And again, it doesn't have to be a competitive goal. It could be a distance goal. It could be, just trying a new trail, something
Yeah.
like that. I think just keeping things fresh and sometimes just trying new things, maybe that are maybe a hybrid. Like, I don't know, in Australia, I think it's probably blowing up. Is High Rocks big there?
Yeah, High Rocks is big here. Yeah.
Yeah. So just do things too. And I think sometimes that just helps with motivation. I think sometimes things get stale. And I think that a lot of people frame staleness as a negative, like, oh, I'm burned out, or oh, I don't want to, and it's not always a negative. I think sometimes it just means, okay, well, no one has a gun to your head. Most people aren't making their paychecks from going for a run. You
Yeah.
can do different things, maybe try a duathlon where you bike as well, or, I just think trying new things and not being so rigid, I think is sometimes good. Again, I think it's hard from a training perspective, like when you look at training programs, okay, you do this on Monday, this on Tuesday, and it can seem very rigid, and it often is. And I think there's a reason for that, and usually it's good. But again, I think sometimes, also not there's so much data to your point about sitting at a computer,
Mm.
right? Like one of my personal training clients that I had, he was a big cyclist. But he was a quant hedge fund manager, meaning
Oh,
all he did was, run and do algorithms and
yeah.
formulas to determine trading, right?
Yeah.
And so he would never bring a computer with him on the bike. He goes, Rick, I look at a screen all day and I look at numbers and spreadsheets and algorithms all day. The last thing I want to do when I'm on a freaking bike ride is stare at a little mini computer on my bike telling me my watts, my RPMs, my heart rate, my speed, my distance. He's like, I don't want to see it. So I think one of the things that I always tell people to do as well is don't ditch the Garmin,
Mm.
don't nothing to load up in the Strava. Just go for a
It
run
didn't
or go
happen
for
if it's not in Strava. What are
right,
you talking about, Rick?
right. And that's the thing, right? Like, because there's that social component where, it needs to be in there. But just going out and like looking at the trees and the sky and just do it for the fun of it. Don't do it for the metrics. Don't do it for the training. Just do it because you enjoy it. And I think that so many people, and I'll put myself in that, kind of get away from that because you're looking like, what's my power output? How far did I go? What was my training score? Was I unproductive today, according to Garmin, which I always am? It's like just go out there and have fun. So I think sometimes just unplugging from the data is also good because you self-judge, right, based off that data. Was it a good ride? Was it a good
Yeah.
run? Was it not a good run? Versus just like, yeah, but did I have fun? Did
Yeah.
I get out of my office for an hour? Like those are the things that really matter. So I think that's another thing that I think all of us can probably be better at
Yeah.
is just not paying as so much attention to the data, and not even just even RPE, like
Mm.
just going out there just to go out there,
Yeah.
just to go for a run. And I think that can be freeing.
It's probably get us closer to being able to tap into our body that we're talking about before too, that disconnecting from all the stats as
Yeah.
well.
Like
Mm.
there was recently, I think it was in last year's Tour de France, there was this rider who his bike broke, and then he got a spare bike, but he forgot to take off his cycle computer, and he won the stage. And the headline was, let's call him Bob. Bob won Tour de France stage number 5, totally blind, because he didn't have all this data. God forbid he just rode his bike, and it was really telling because I think so much of that is like if you don't have this data constantly streaming into you, then it's not an effective way to train, and it's just not the case.
No.
And every day there's another gadget, another day there's another metric that you have to correlate with some other data point to make it meaningful, and versus just go for the run, just go for the ride, go for the swim, go for the rock climb, and just have fun.
Just
And
enjoy it. Mm.
I think we've kind of gotten away from that, to be honest. Like I love the fact that more people are involved with endurance sports and doing these certifications. And I like one of our contributors for the cycling one, he's the head aerodynamics guy for Cannondale bikes,
Oh,
and he
wow.
was talking about all the yaw angles and different, and like it's impressive and it's really cool stuff. And but a lot of this stuff is just like, man, how much is too much? So it's like
Yeah.
I know all the data is important. I understand the importance of data, but I also understand the importance of not having data and just unplugging for a while. So that's a very long-winded way of saying
Yeah.
I think sometimes being motivated is just ignoring all the noise and just going out for a run.
I just love that. I think that's the perfect way to wrap up our podcast, Rick, because it leaves it on such a positive note that's accessible to everybody. You don't have to have an expensive Garmin on your watch or any of that other kind of stuff, or even to have your run, and I find this hard to say, on Strava. So you could just go out for a run and
Yeah.
enjoy it and just for the the beauty of that action and that activity that you're doing, and
Yeah.
and you're probably better off for it if you do that on and off.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
thank you for sharing. That was wonderful.
Yeah.
It's been an absolute delight. Is there anything else about running or cycling or UESCA you wanted to share before we wrap up?
No, not really. I mean, I know you're going to mention UESCA if you want to, great. But otherwise, but yeah, I just want to come on and just chat with you. It's always fun chatting with different people, certainly on the other side of the world. So thank you for this opportunity.
It has been a delight. And as I said before, it's, I've known you for a while now because of UESCA. So it's been lovely to be able to talk to you in person and get to know you a little more and share you with everyone else. Don't jump off straight away, but everyone else, there will be lots of links in the podcast notes, so you'll be able to go and see what UESCA is all about, and not to mention the fitness one that's coming up as well. I wrote down, is it AIHP? Is that sound like the acronym? Look at me. So you'll be able to go and check that out in the middle of the year as well. So that's very exciting. Again, thank you, Rick. It's been a delight, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks for tuning in to the Zen Run podcast. I hope today's chat left you feeling just a little more inspired to move in your way and on your terms. If you've got a running story you'd love to share, please reach out. I'm always looking for real, relatable stories that help remind us we're not alone, whether it's a big goal, a quiet win, or simply why you keep showing up. I'd love to hear it, and I'd love to share it. Plus, if you're curious about the Zen Run Club, come take a look. It's a low-key space with guided runs, simple training plans, and monthly challenges to help keep your running fun, motivating, and totally stress-free. Until next time, keep running, keep breathing, and keep showing up for yourself.